Hello and welcome to TIL2. It is midnight of June 30th, 2017. With lots of official fanfare and a tinge of titillating history, the Modi government had recreated the famous tryst with destiny in the parliament, and thus was born the historic goods and services tax, which has turned 1 year old tonight. In the last 365 days, the journey for the GST has been full of political drama, fulminations, and organized protest by aggrieved sector of the industry such as textiles and traders, a few wrinkles in much talked about slogan of cooperative federalism, swift cut in the tax rates of hundreds of goodies, quick trickling of compliance procedures, half-hearted suspension of critical preventive provision such as RCM, TDS and TCS, irritating technical glitches by the GST and forcing the government to postpone the implementation of GSTR 1, 2 and 3. Finally, transferring the ownership of the GSTN from private to government, proposing several legislative changes to dispense with legal irritants, and finally proposing a new levy of sugar cess. In a nutshell, it has so far been an exciting journey for GST, and the credit for its largely stable run goes to the new return format of GSTR 3B. It is now going to be rebooted with a new GSTR, many more legislative changes, also perhaps a new cess. Are we heading for another year of major changes? Is it a journey going to be relatively trouble-free? Let me take you all to TIL2 studio, where we have distinguished GST experts who would enlighten you with their views. Over to studio.
Hello and welcome to Simply Intoxicating. It has been almost 1 year now for the GST. It's going to be the first GST anniversary, and the Government of India is going to observe this July 1st as the GST day. CBIC is gearing up to roll out good number of events on this day, and in a way government wants to thank the industry and trade for the cooperation, and the taxpayers and also the policymakers who have made valuable contribution, and they are going to make further. So without getting into more details, as my colleague has already given you graphic description of how it was the last 365 days for the GST, the most historic tax reform for independent India. We have three distinguished domain experts, the GST, non-GST faces rather. We have Mr. First Gst Jain, national leader, PwC, our knowledge partner. We have Mr. Bimal Jain, chairman, Indirect Tax Committee, PhD Chambers, and we have Mr. Sumit Majumdar, former chairman, CBEC. So let me start with Pratik. The first round I would prefer having the take on this, how it was, good, bad, excellent, whatever. So what is your take on this, the last 1 year?
See, of course everybody knows it's a remarkable achievement, right? Momentous reform in many ways. 365 days is not enough really to give a final verdict on its success. But if you look at three different sides of GST or perspectives, let's start with the consumers first, okay? You have not seen inflation increasing. So I don't have any empirical evidence to say the prices have come down, but certainly it has not gone up substantially. So that's a great news. Second is you have not seen shortage of goods. You have not seen disruption in supply chain. GST is a much more transparent system. Customer knows how much tax has been paid. Ordering goods online has become easier. It's a one tax across all states, single rate, etc. Those arbitrage have gone. So consumers are, I think, by and large happy. Coming to the government standpoint, if you see tax base has significantly expanded. 15-20 lakh new businesses are now registered for GST. If you last 2-3 months, the average collection is 98,000 crores, which is 10,000 crore more if you see the previous 8-9 months, right? So I think base is increasing. Industry has supported it, except with some exception, let's say textile, etc. In the beginning, industry has wholeheartedly supported it. Unlike when VAT happened, when people came to street, etc. So it has been largely successful from a government standpoint, I would say. Right. From industry standpoint, again, barring the initial technological glitches where people really struggle to file returns in the initial 1-2 months, and to some extent exporters and MSMEs, I think largely it has been smooth. We have seen cases, a lot of our clients, where they have seen 3 to 5% reduction in their costs
Okay.
of logistics, of transportation, supply chain and things like that. So the rates have been reduced mid-November last year, 20 to 18 on several items. So industry by and large is happy. Of course, a lot more to be done, but if you look at 1 year of GST, I think it has been exceptional. It has been exceptional.
Okay, wonderful. So, I mean, getting this kind of positive feedback, now Bimalji, what is your take on this?
Of course, if you look at GST, it's the biggest indirect tax reform since independence. And within 1 year, you cannot expect everything to be smooth and each for all of us together. I do agree to a certain extent what Prateek ji has said, but still I'm of the view that it is neither a good nor a bad, but satisfying. We are moving on a right direction. At the same time, what we have experienced last year, that government wanted to simplify it, but in the name of simplification, we have seen many changes. 400 plus changes has come by way of notification, circular, order. Sometimes government is giving their best, they are trying their best, but what they have to really understand, many changes sometimes create complication, unease, simplification. So I do agree with the objective of GST, biggest indirect tax reform, multiplicity going away, double taxation going away, cascading is not there, bearing petroleum product and other item. And then one nation, one tax. Honorable Prime Minister has said it is again a cooperative federalism. All the center state coming together, they are deciding by way of consensus. But for GST as a success, as we thought of initially, we are on the path of that. But do we have achieved in the first year? 100% not.
So, what is your take? Now you have heard domain experts.
They made my job simpler.
Okay.
I don't have to repeat what they've said. But I lend my voice to what they've said.
Sir.
But I just want to add one or two additional points. What are the basic 5 aims of GST, if we look at it? One was that it will give a seamless flow of credit by taking away that cascading of taxes. Then there will be less compliance costs, because the number of taxes, 17 taxes, pre-GST taxes have been subsumed. Then the third, these two, I would say that reasonably it has been satisfactory, but for the fact what Bimalji had said, that petroleum and petroleum products, and I would also add alcohol to it. And these items should be brought so that there is a seamless flow in respect of all commodities. Alcohol may be a demerit items, but then demerit items, cigarette and tobacco is there in GST. So there is no reason why it should not be there. And what happens, the raw materials for those items are not demerit goods. So the credit chain breaks. So, and petroleum is an essential raw material for any item. So this, I'm sure that this will come. Once the comfort of revenue is there with the government, state governments and central government, this should come. Now the rates also, I think to start with, 4 rates were okay, given the situation in the country, different levels of poverty or richness. So you can't have the same, and that's why Malaysia failed. One of the reasons I would say that Malaysia is also condition is more or less similar as India. They're super rich and super poor, and but then same rate, and that's why the prices had gone up on essential commodities also. So that it was not, but this will not happen in India. They have done it in a very nice way. But yes, there is scope, which Prateek ji had said. 28% should come down now, but for demerit and luxury goods, all other items can be brought down. With the comfort of revenue, growth, and the revenue growth is there. The 5th aim I forgot to tell you, the 5th aim was that revenue buoyancy would be there. Now I'm just quoting Mr. Arvind Subramanian. Recently in an article he has said that if you take the pre-existing GST revenue collections, the excise and the service tax, state VAT and all, and the GST collection for the 9 months, first 9 months, he said the growth is 11.9%. And he has projected that the states particularly will be more beneficiary to the center. He has not said it so many words, but implicitly, because he said the states should be having a growth of 14% in a year or two. So revenue-wise, we are seeing revenue balance is definitely there. And that's why there is at least some murmur in the press reports we see that there's some people are saying that to start with ATF and natural gas will be brought under GST gradually. So there's a talk. So, and I think it will be sooner the better. So by and large, I would say, and greatest of all benefit I'm not talking about politics, but it's a fact that center and states on many occasions, they don't see eye to eye, and that's not good for development at all. The center and states have to be complementary to each other. And nothing could be better example than this GST, where we have seen cooperative federalism, where not a single decision was taken by voting, although the voting provision is there. So this is an excellent opportunity. This is an excellent example that they've set in. And the world is looking towards India, that how they manage the 31 states, like Brazil, they have got 26 states. They're having problems. They're also looking at India, how they have done it. So overall, I would say that it has been satisfactory, and it is in line with the aim. And you can't expect, as Pratik has already said, that you can't expect that in 1 year everything will be straightened out. It has to be a work in progress. And I would only urge the GST Council to meet more often, just as they had done in the months of September, October, November particularly, which straightened up many of the initial glitches, not only in the GST net, but also on the policy decisions. So with this, I am very hopeful of GST being successful in India.
Right. So Pratik, in fact, sir pointed out many things. In fact, one of them is, of course, he said that apparently there is from Government of India and also the states, it's a gradualist approach. One step by step they are moving in that direction. So it is not 100% cooperative, federalism, but partially cooperative federalism, and that is how, sir, the GST council meeting, as you said, that no decision being taken, by voting. So that sets a good example. So don't you think this was a good approach to make a beginning? I mean, when it came,
absolutely. And let me just qualify what I said. When I said excellent, I don't. Everything has been hunky dory, right? I think if you look at 1 year and compare that with what used to happen earlier,
yes,
right? Now, from an industry point of view, half of my time I used to waste in collecting C form and F form and this and that, and figuring out in which state my contract should be worded in what manner, and the different provisions and things like that. There were tax arbitrage, mobile phone in few states 5%, another state 15%, there's a diversion of trade happening. All of those things can now be avoided, right? So I think it's a much better situation. I did not expect it to be as smooth as it has turned out to be. So therefore, I think that's really work in progress. The one point that GST Council should be meeting more often, and I agree with that. And I think the frequency has gone down, and there could be many reasons. One reason is that perhaps GST is stabilizing, and second is that they don't want to make a lot of changes. But if you have to do structural changes, if you have to bring in real estate, you are bringing petroleum products, start with natural gas and ETF and things like that, these things require detailed deliberation, right? So therefore, one would hope that the momentum that they had, that continues for next 1 or 2 years. I also look forward to this legislative changes which they're trying to bring in this monsoon session. There are 50-60 changes what we hear they're proposing, and although those changes, most of them would be prospective because they don't have really the power to do it retrospectively, and therefore to that extent, suppose this changes comes, let's say, from July 15, for last 1 year we will have to still deal with that. But I think some of those changes are required. There are of course genuine errors and ambiguities in the law. Also, they need to do something on the dispute resolution, because while this advanced ruling was a good mechanism for clarity, but now what we're seeing is most of the rulings which have come, close to 100 odd, mostly they are in favor of revenue. And now we are seeing a trend where different states are taking different views on same issue, and that, if it picks up, it becomes very difficult for industry to do business. So that's one aspect. Dispute resolution is something that the government needs to urgently sort of look at.
So Bimal Jain, Pratik ji has highlighted many issues. In fact, the canvas is so large and so many issues. In fact, legislative changes is one area, of course. This dispute resolution is a very significant area which you must be confronting with on a day-to-day basis. And then, of course, the good thing about the GST is the last 365 days not bad. And then the structural reform which is talking about again, that means a major significant change in the GST design, which is perhaps it was there in their mind, they have not unfolded it, they will do it in a phased manner, but probably the time has come. Most of the experts are saying that, Pratik is also saying that it's time now to rope in, at least to start with ATF or natural gas or something. How do you look at this scenario, and how realistic, your optimism is going to be? looking at various other parameters?
Need to be. See what happened. If really we want to have success of GST, we have to look at those aspects. We are into 4-tier rate as on date, 5%, 12%, 18% and 28%. Do we require to maintain 28% slab except luxury goods and demerit goods? We need to done away with, and rightly so. In the October month 2017, they have taken out more than 170 products. So this 28% should be applicable only for luxurious and thin goods. And once you are making 4-tier rate to 3-tier rate, then you have a step further to make it 2-tier rate. Simplify it over a period of time. First, when I'm talking about structural changes, legislative changes, of course 60 odd changes we are expecting would come in the monsoon session. But what are all those changes? There's one specific change, section 9 subsection 4, which is when you purchase from an unregistered supplier, it is being deferred till 30th June 2018. What happened? This 9(4), if you look at from operational perspective, not convenient, not providing ease of business. Legislative wise also we can argue, legally it is not tenable at all. Such kind of changes should not be there. And look at the gap, legislative versus your tech part, GSTN part. You said the credit is available when supplier has paid the taxes. Alongside 3 other conditions, you must have received the goods, you must have tax invoice, recipient must file the return. But where from a taxpayer can check whether supplier has paid the taxes or not? So there has to be synchronization. Legislative changes should be supported by GST and technical part, and we have faced that so many changes are being done by way of notification, circular, order, and so many things. But that is not supported by GSTN portal. So what I'm saying, as a way forward in second year, what we have to do, whatever GST Council thinking for the simplification, ease of business, and bringing those changes in legislative part of it, let's make it, more synchronization with the technical part. My system should talk about those changes that system is not talking about. Second, coming to the third point, advanced ruling rightly picked up. What was the objective of advanced ruling? To bring certainty, clarity. Are we really getting it? More than 100 advanced ruling has come. Maximum has gone in favor of revenue. And there are some of the ruling which has gone against the law provision, like hotel providing services to SEZ unit. Now what is being stated by advanced ruling, it is not zero rated and it is an intrastate supply. Then circular is coming out from CBIC and clarifying the position. Whether circular can clarify that ruling, whereas appellate mechanism is available. At the same time, if I'm having more than let's say 10 offices in 10 different states, and each of the states start giving different ruling on same subject matter, where I'm going to head for? Is it giving certainty? It is giving clarity? No way. But I've heard of that government is thinking to bring in centralized advanced ruling authority. If I'm having more than 5 registration in 5 different states, they are thinking on those lines. Wise one. Coming to the next part of it, we have seen the refund mechanism. Refund as per the law. But whether the system is supporting, GSTN is supporting, not supporting, except the IGST payment, you come across getting a refund of ITC by way of manual process. There's nothing like authentication. Initially, there was a debate what document need to be submitted. Then we got the circular. After getting circular, again the officers are taking their own stand when to give, when not to give. Why such subjectivity should be there? Refund is important need to promote export. And we have to only, but where from we can check? Neither the officer can check, nor the taxpayer can check, creating imbalance in our operational system. Coming to the next component of simplification of GST return. Yes, GST Council has decided simplification would be done, and they are talking about now simplification would be one-pager form which we are referring to, but we do not know what kind of one-pager form would be coming in, and that utility should be made available to the public for their own comments so that they can come back. Now what simplification in return we are talking about, that only supplier is going to upload outward supply details, then only recipient will be given credit. But there's so many corresponding factors. If supplier does not upload, if supplier upload incorrect information, what happened? And if supplier does not pay the taxes, because linkage to the tax payment is another subject matter. So those parameters need to be looked into. And when we go to eBay bill, it was basically to control check everything. But you must have heard of different state like Delhi introduced intrastate from 16 June. Tamil Nadu, they have said threshold amount would be 1 lakh, as against 50,000 uniform figure, 50,000 too low a figure. it can be increased and standardized for all the state together. Why state, and that too subjective to specified goods? Lot many state has said it is applicable
Gujarat.
only for the specified goods.
Correct.
So is it really going to create one nation, one tax? So I'm only saying GST Council definitely working as a cooperative federalism. All the subject matter is being decided by way of consensus, no voting. Well appreciated, but what is most required, we have to ensure center and state along with all taxpayer to ensure GST is giving mileage of good and simple tax. It's a festival of honesty as stated by Honorable Prime Minister. They have to hear the voice of the concerned trade concern and bring in those changes in GST law to really make it good and simple.
Sir, I mean, Bimal ji has literally, triggered Pandora box. Too many issues, in fact. But one issue, sir, which is of course bothering everybody, is the advance ruling.
I'll tell you.
The centralized advance ruling, sir, just came to my mind, sir, that why to go for a centralized advance ruling system and create a new body? You already have advance ruling body.
I'll tell you. What used to happen in the pre-GST? Everything was not bad with the pre-GST regime. There must be some good points also. Whenever there is a possibility of a confusion or doubt on a certain issue, it used to be discussed in the collectors conference or commissioners conference, as we call it. And then it was to refer to the board, and board is to issue a circular. And it is centralized and everybody is doing it. I would like something like that to be repeated under the aegis of GST Council. Okay. And so that will be, and don't have this, and that's a junior level. Why do you put such junior level officers into this problem of giving advance ruling? And then have you an appellate authority for advance ruling? Advance ruling should be at a higher level. Whatever he says, it should be absolutely, that should be accepted. So instead of this, you have a scheme like you used to have in the pre-GST regime, and it's still there for customs, that the GST Council can decide on this, all the issues, and particularly it is important that the initial 1 or 2 years, all the issues will arise. After that, it will get sorted out over a period of time. At least to start with, I would say for 2 years, the GST Council should step in. And another thing which Bimal Ji had said, I fully agree with that, that we are talking of cooperative federalism and all those things we are talking, I mean, we actually have seen that is going on very nicely. Then why should unilaterally certain state will have, just because UA bill is intrastate, so it is my business? No, nothing is my business. It is everybody's business. Yeah. Because trade is for him, whether it is passing through Gujarat or Tamil Nadu or Delhi, it's the same thing. So there's all decisions should be through the GST Council increase. I mean, I have no problem with that, making it 2 lakhs or even 5 lakhs. But then it should be uniform. And so if we go in for such things, I'm sure that things will be better. And other thing, very important, the return. What I think what he wants to say is that we don't want that a new, the GSTR 3B and GSTR 1 is going on smoothly up till now. Generally, people are happy with it. Yes. Now you bring a new GST return system. Well, it is said that it will be simplified, but we must, the taste of the pudding is in eating it. So we must know beforehand. Trade must know beforehand whether it is acceptable and what are the problems. And more importantly, it must go through pilot runs. Previously, it was not done at the initial stage. Yes. And that's why all these problems arose. And all these things, and then the other point which Bimal Ji has mentioned about that, the legislative change or procedural changes are made by the policy wing, but commensurate accommodation is not there in the GST net. Yes, so this is creating problems. So all these are things, but these are expected. I mean, you can't expect a huge thing like GST that will sort out every problem. And so we are going ahead. So only thing one has to be alert, and Mr. Bimal Jain and Mr. Pratik Jain and others in the trade industry, they should point out, give the problems to the GST Council, and that's why I said that GST Council should meet more often.
Right. But what I was suggesting, sir, we already have advance ruling headed by a retired Supreme Court judge. And the same body used to have a separate bench which used to give ruling in case of central excise service tax customs. They are still giving for customs. No, but now they have in the budget, they have removed. Now, sir, they, in fact, in the last budget, the Indian Finance Minister sanctioned some additional benches headed by his vice chairman. So now we already have that kind of infrastructure available. The same can be empowered under GST.
Yeah.
They can have it.
There's one problem. One problem. You see, GST is a new topic, new subject. So to give an advanced ruling, pardon my saying so. I'm not saying that anybody doesn't have somebody doesn't have the qualification, but it was experience and all that. The GST Council has been dealing with this GST for over a period of time. So to start with, don't give it to others. Let it be done under the aegis of GST Council. They know the issues. They know the things. They are being backed by a secretariat who have been dealing with the GST. So I would still suggest that let it be their advanced ruling authority where it is there. In course of time, perhaps, yes. That's why I said at least for 2 years, let GST Council decide everything. Later on, by that time, there will be number of case laws, there will be all the experience, and of that, what you are suggesting can be done after 2 years or 3 years.
Yes.
I have something to say here about, like, who is advanced ruling as per the GST law? Any officer not below the rank of Joint Commissioner, both from central and state. Now, we have seen maximum number of advanced ruling is going in favor of revenue. They will not be taking any, natural decision, and that's what we are finding today. And even they are taking contrary decision from the GST Act perspective, law perspective, which is being clarified by way of circular. So look at the relevance of this advanced ruling. If it is not giving me certainty and clarity, why the taxpayer would be coming forward? And objective is dispute resolution in a time-bound manner. And who is the appellate authority? Again, the commissioner from the state side and chief commissioner from the central side. Why can't we have retired judicial members from SESTAT? They are well versed with the indirect taxation. They can come in as advanced ruling authority, and they can be independent, and they will not be biased giving the ruling, and that will serve the purpose. If at all we are looking for serving the purpose of dispute resolution, and that to be the neutral, that to unbiased. There should not be biased kind of ruling coming out. That would be my suggestion, sir.
I just have one point. I think what Mr. Manudhar is suggesting is a good idea, but I'm not sure whether it can work legislatively. If GST Council and sir, the point made about Commissioner Conference and all that earlier under customs, that was more of a thing where you had to issue a clarification. Now you have created a body legislatively, okay, and then you have to give respect to that body. If GST Council creates a mechanism that any advance ruling which comes will before it is issued has to be examined by the council, it might be challenged in the courts unless you amend the law itself. Because once you have an authority, you can't then undermine the authority.
So Article 279A, probably it doesn't waste that kind of powers in the constitution.
No,
it has a lot of other powers.
We have a lot of amendments coming, so let there be one more amendment. If you think that is worth it.
Maybe the change of appointing advanced ruling authority. I'm only suggesting as against appointing joint commissioner, you appoint retired judicial member. That is quite workable solution. And this can be looked into. And we have seen, if you go to fight a case in such that 80% of cases, SSCs are getting in their favor. Why they are getting in favor? Because so-called notices are being issued just on the pretext of issuance. WEG, and 80% relief comes from SESTAT. And who is giving? Those judicial and technical members, with due regards to technical member as well.
No, I tell you, sorry for interrupting. On your point only. Well, if centralized thing is not advisable, at least have regional, don't have too many advanced ruling. So otherwise the problem will remain the same, that different regions, different commissioners are having different views. So have it regionally, at least north, east, south, four regions, at least the problem will be contained.
Now, in that case, what we have seen in litigation, if any division bench giving judgment and another division bench giving contrary judgment, then it has to go to a larger bench. Correct. Why can't I have similar kind of stuff? Let's say a particular regional advanced ruling authority has given judgment, other regional authority is not agreeing to, then pass on for the larger bench. Let them decide. Instead of creating contrary version and contrary perspective, neither for the trade nor for the tax department.
So the problem is divergent views, the conflicting views on the same.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's why I am for the centralized thing. That's why I'm saying that you don't have divergent views once you have centralized things.
Now, the one important thing, maybe, Pratik, I would like to have your comment on this, that last 1 year, from the tax administration perspective, the industry and trade, of course, largely taxpayers have been confronting with the GST network, technical glitches, or the GST returns, various kind of returns being suspended and new provisions being implemented, e-way bill, etc. But how do you look at this, the performance of the tax administration? Is there some kind of subliminal change in their approach, their attitude toward taxpayers, or the field level officers are feeling totally workless, that there is nothing to do because everything is being taken care of by the technology?
No, I must say I'm really worried about this. Okay, I think your face time with the authorities have gone down, because you can take online registration, you can file online returns, you don't need to get into C forms, etc., etc. So you don't need to go there and interact with them. That also means that perhaps the level of work that many of these guys have at the state level has gone down substantially. And you have seen cases where there have been notices issued saying that, okay, you reconcile e-way bill with your GST return, which you can't reconcile because, e-way bill is not for services, it's only 50,000 above, and so on and so forth. And I think if they don't appreciate technology that much and try and sort of get into manual, then it will create problems. Therefore, I think there is a need to say, how do they move from people from registration wing to our assessment wing to more intelligence is something that they need to work on now, because if they don't, in the next few months, industry could face a problem. I think enough work has not happened on this as yet.
Sir, I mean, given this 4 decades of your experience in Government of India and tax administration, how do you look at this? These are the issues of the challenges.
Actually, he has snatched my words. I was going to come to that.
Sir.
That now the officers don't have much to do with the assessment normal routine. And, the government, both center and the states, they have been doing all the trade facilitation, and it's the right thing to do in GST regime. But at the same time, as I always say, that 7 to 8% of the trade and industry are the delinquent ones. And for them, the entire trade gets the bad name, and all those, whenever there is a fraud detected, then there is a knee-jerk reaction for the government, and some circular comes stopping the trade facilitation in a particular area. So to take care of that, as Pratik has rightly said, that we must strengthen the Director General GST intelligence. And it is all, actually, as a matter of fact, they should develop intelligence and catch this. It's not a difficult thing. If, like in customs, DRI has been doing, the preventive formations have been doing, they can have DGCEI, directorate, as well as intelligence wing in each commissionerate. So there will be healthy competition between the two. But that has to be said, but that is only one, and the audit. And I'm told that audit manual is coming up very soon. They are working very hard on it. I'm waiting for that, because the Central Excise Audit Manual is one of the finest manuals that they had produced. And so once audit and intervention are strengthened, because leaving aside these two, there's not much of work.
Right, sir. So, Bimalji, maybe the closing comments, sir. So, Bimalji, on what exactly you are looking forward to in the second year of the GST? Anything significant, earth-shaking, cloud-bursting, something like that?
Very simple statement to you, that we are saying is GST is a festival of honesty, and ended the Inspector Raj. It must be presented on the floor. It must be presented on the floor so that we can experience. Of course, GST is a cooperative federalism, festival of honesty, ended the Inspector Raj. And whatever suggestion we had discussed today, whatever discussion is happening today, you talked about and you asked about that the tax administration. I would just like to make one small comment. See, they're the help desk, they're the grievance cell, but you ask any taxpayer, are you getting any help from the help desk or the grievance cells? We are not getting the requisite services from the help desk or grievance cells. Now coming to the officers, and they should be given some power to help the taxpayers, there has to be some mechanism. I know we are creating a technical part and it's all getting automized, but technical part need to be supported in terms of GST law. If I've got particular query on registration and which is neither being solved by help desk nor by grievance cells, where I should head for? Where should I go for? So we have to really think GST being the biggest indirect tax reform, new law, is creating, interpretation issue between taxpayer and tax department both. Even sometimes we are getting contrary views from the tax department as well. What we have to make sure that whatever suggestion given as a way forward in second year, this need to be really introduced in a right perspective. That we have to see, like return filing, late fees is there. Sometimes late fees crosses your tax amount. It is nil return. It is nil return, but less fees crosses your tax amount to be paid. Yeah, right. So we have to really look on the work workability of GST, where the honest taxpayer must be greeted with the folded hand. Please come. We are here for the nation's growth and development. There will be no late fees for the first 1 year or 2 years. Let them come on board. Let them learn GST. And with this mutual learning of together, we will create a situation of good and simple tax, which we are talking about. Apart from making specific comments, apart from my agenda, apart from anything else, I'm only making simple agenda. Let's have, GST Council should meet frequently, look at the objective of trade, industry and commerce, and bring such changes. No penalty, no kind of, late fees. Initially, let them come on board for 1 year and 2 years. And whatever changes you are bringing in the law or you're bringing on GSTN platform, let's you put those law before public comments. Let's say all changes you are going to introduce in monsoon session. But I do not know. 9.4 was not there in revised and final model GST law, but was a part of GST law. So any changes which you want to bring in the GST law, kindly put for the public comments, so that whatever you are going to introduce, that should not be debated at a future date. So my only take is we must come on board together, and together we will make difference.
Wonderful. Yeah,
I think he said enough on that, but we are releasing a 365 days of GST report, PwC report, and one of the comment from a leading CFO for a leading bank is that GST initially looks like a traffic jam, okay, but once it stabilizes, it's as sweet as a jam. Right. so I think we have to be patient. But one thing I just like to reiterate is that if they involve industry more in decision making, that will help. But I think after a year when we are discussing the same topic here, we'll all be much happier with the 2 years of implementation of GST than what we are right now.
Yes, sir. Anything you would like to add, sir?
8 out of 10, considering this is the first year.
Right, sir.
I think they've done much better than we had expected. Seeing because here is a thing where always the English proverbs do not prove to be correct. Morning didn't show the day here. The morning was bad.
Right.
Initial 2 months. But then after that, it has recovered very well. And I'm sure with all these things and the suggestions which have been made in this forum and even in other fora, I think we can look forward to a better and better GST. You can't have the best of GST at any point of time. No country has that. But we can always aspire to have a better and better GST and more active participation of GST Council. The work that they have done must be continued.
So on this note, let me thank my guests, and as all three my guests have given a thumping or rather outstanding marks to GST, and as Pratik rightly said, although the GST targets traffic, but ultimately what it aims at is jam for both taxpayers and the revenue kitty, and revenue and taxpayers probably will have it. We have to aspire and work in the same direction, and good number of suggestions. Last 1 year, of course, it's a past. Let's not look behind. Let's look forward. And good number of changes which are in the pipeline and the industry and trade is looking forward to. For instance, structural changes in terms of roping in the untouched area like real estate, natural gas, ATF, and maybe petroleum later, not immediately. Maybe after this revenue statistics indicate little more comfort for the revenue strategists in the North Block. So looking at, apart from that, the legislative changes, Mr. Bimal Jain has rightly pointed out, the government should share it, but I guess probably it is not yet finalized. That is why government has not come out with this. But the monsoon session, if they are targeting the bill in the monsoon session, then they are running out of time because there is not much time. The session is starting on 18th of July. So it will take, probably it may be pushed to winter session. So we will have to look at all those changes. Industry and trade looks forward, or probably they are getting it or misperceiving the whole efforts of the government, states and cooperative federalism, that the GST Council is losing the momentum. They are not meeting too frequently. So probably this is also giving a wrong signal. This is not a good signal for the second year of GST, because all the states and the Union of India, they need to come together and finalize too many agenda items which are pending. So looking at all these aspects, and now the government of India has taken over GST network, hopefully there would be little more cooperation, little more synchronization in their efforts and better coordination. So let's look forward to much healthier GST in the second year for the taxpayers and as well as for the revenue kitty. Thanking you all for watching TIT. Thank you, sir.